Hi guys, and welcome back to Scale Motor. Today we're carrying on with the Ducati 916 Senna build, and we're going to be jumping in with the exhaust, oftentimes one of my favourite parts of a build. Okay, now we've got everything cut off the sprue. We're just taking a look at some photo etch, which came with the blue stuff Senna trans kit. Looking really good. Just test fit in now the exhaust. Realised that there's a part stuck to the frame, which you can see there where the exhaust mounts to, and it would have made painting a little bit annoying, so we decided to cut that off. I opted to use a blade rather than nippers, just so we could get a nice clean cut. Next, we're just going to use the back end of a craft knife or hobby blade or scalpel, whatever it is you use, just to remove some of those mold lines. They can be quite annoying on round parts, so just be careful you don't scrape away too much and take the part out of round. Test fit in the mufflers. We can see they connected kind of weirdly, and they needed to connect before gluing the exhaust onto the bike. And yeah, this is a bit of a finicky way to do it. So in the end, after test fitting, we just decided to snip the mufflers off, and we could just slide them on after painting. So firstly, we're going to snip off the exhaust hangers. Just being careful to get a nice clean cut. Doesn't really matter too much, to be fair. And then we're just going to scrape away some of that plating just so we can glue the hangers into the mufflers, because the extra thin doesn't work too well through the chrome plating on these kits. And then a bit more scraping just along the mating surfaces, just so the glue actually takes hold and we get a nice bond between the parts. So we're just going to pop a bit of glue on the mating surfaces, push the parts together, and then run the extra thin along the seam and let the capillary action take the glue into the seam. And we get a much nicer bond that way. And then we can squeeze the parts together and we get a kind of bead of molten plastic, which oozes out and is pretty much free filler. So we've got some photo etch parts to represent the bands on the exhaust and the actual exhaust strap. So we had to remove the moulded in parts. So we opted first for a hobby blade just for a bit more finesse, but yeah, that didn't go too well. It was going to take a while, so we opted for files and sanding. We also got rid of 90% of the chrome plating on the part as well. These are going to be carbon fibered, so it doesn't have to be the best finish, but we're going to go through the sanding grits just to get as nice as finish as we can, just so the decal sits a lot nicer. There was quite a bit of fill-in to do on the exhausts where the parts went together, and also we had some ejector pin marks to deal with. So we opted for the Tamiya white putty. It's a little old, so it's a bit thick, but with a bit of Tamiya extra thin, that thins it down nicely, and we can get it on the parts a lot nicer. You can see there's some ejector pin marks. I opted for this part first because this wouldn't be seen, so I just wanted to test out if it actually fit. And then we've got that monstrosity of filler you can see on the back, which is the part we cut off the frame. It can't really be seen, so I didn't pay too much attention when I was sanding it. Most of it come off anyway. But like I said, that can't be seen, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm just making sure I get all the ejector pin marks and the stuff that's going to be seen once the exhaust is mounted to the model. Once that's all set and all sanded back, move on to painting. I opted for the the UMP gloss black primer. I love this primer and metallic stuff, and it's just an all-round good primer. Nice and quick dry in, so you can paint over it really, really quick. But I think I'm 18 to 20 psi using 3.5mm needle in my UMP Apex. I'm just going to slowly build it up until we get a nice glossy finish. It's quite hard to capture under these lights. As you can see, the focus wasn't great, but yeah, I like the gloss we got in the end, and I think it came out quite nice. We opted to do the same on the mufflers, even though these are going to be carbon fibered. And then we're going to come in with the A stand, which is basically Alclad chrome. I went a bit thick and quick on the mufflers because I didn't want this to be super chrome. I just wanted it to be a nice silvery colour, basically, just for the end caps. But then when it comes to the actual pipes, we're going to very slowly build it up. It's a 0.2mm needle in a UMP Apex. I've turned my compressor down to between 5 and 8 psi, just enough to push the paint out. But yeah, slowly build it up. We're going so slow at this point that I just kind of done it all in one coat. Just keep going, because by the time you get to the end, one end of the pipe, the other end's dry, and you can go over. But just go slow, because if you go too far, you can lose some of that shine. The shine mainly comes from the glossy black base, which is why I opted for this primer. It just kind of cuts out the step. Sometimes you can use GX2, or you can use Tamiya black, gloss black. Just you want a nice glossy base, really. Another option is to 2K it, but again, that's another step, and it does kind of slow down the process. I'm quite happy with the results I get with the UMP and Alclad, so yeah, I don't think I'm going to be changing that up anytime soon. I've still got to try the Pro Scale. I have heard quite a lot about the Pro Scale, so it is something I want to try. But for the time being, in the meantime, the Alclad is working well for me. Just masking a couple of bits on the exhaust. I was going to go and do kind of weld seams and everything, but that again is quite involved, and I realised I didn't want to do this shininess, the shiny paint, before doing the weld seams. You want to kind of maybe a duller colour, or the colour of the weld seams first before you mask and then paint. But yeah, we're just covering bits. As you can see, we put that piece of paper in the middle just to stop any overspray. Now for the heat staining, again, the Alclad paints for the heat staining, they work really, really well. Again, we're really low, between 5 and 8 psi, 0.2mm needle. We're going to go through the different kind of heat staining colours. I kind of done them in the wrong order, which is annoying. And I wasn't really happy with the heat staining at first until I come back in, as you can see later, with the chrome again, just to kind of go over the top. And that mutes the colour, the heat staining a bit. And it's hard, like I said, it's hard to capture on camera because it is quite shiny. So you might not be able to tell. And again, the photos I show later, you can't really tell there. But in person, I promise you, it does look okay. I'm quite happy with the result. And now we're just coming back in with that chrome just to kind of mute the colour. The good thing is with the Alclad stuff, because we are doing it nice and thin, as long as you can still see a bit of that gloss black base underneath you, will still get that shine. So coming back over the top with the chrome isn't too much of an issue. And now we're moving on to the mufflers. I'm just going to be using a bit of Tamiya tape just to make some carbon fibre templates. These could have just been rectangles, and I don't know why I overcomplicated it as much as I did. But yeah, we got some nice templates. I like to use various different styles of carbon fibre throughout the build just to give it a bit of visual interest. Not all companies will have the same kind of weave in real life. So we opted for the Tamiya. And it had this kind of weird frosting. I've never seen this before. I don't know what it is, but it just wiped straight off. Really strange. Yeah, let me know if you've ever seen that before, or if you know what it is. But it's the 1/12 scale carbon fibre pattern. We're just going to use the template we made earlier. We're just going to cut that out, and we're going to make 2 of these, one for each muffler. So we're just going to grab some warm water straight from the tap, pop it on our USB coffee warmer. Medium heat is fine. And then we're going to get out our decal solutions, UMP decal solutions. They've treated me well. There's one for every scenario. They're great. The Tamiya stuff I'm using seems to be completely fine using the UMP Strong. And then once the decal's in place and we've got it to conform around everything, using the Strong, we're going to let it kind of settle a bit, and then we'll just go over the top with the UMP Extra Strong, and that just kind of finally seals it in place. But we're going to wet the part, and then our decal, once it slides on the back in, we know it's good to go. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can just pick the backing up and slide the decal straight off, or you can pick it up with tweezers, which is what I... No, it's not what I opt to do here. I've used my fingers. Make sure your fingers are wet if you are touching the decal, because it can stick to your fingers. But we're just going to get it on, get it in place, and once it's in place, we're going to use a wet brush to kind of brush out any of the moisture that's stuck underneath. And then once that's done, we can come in with our UMP Strong decal solution, go over the top, just to soften that decal so it sets in place. Making sure to put it back in its holder, because the amount of times I have knocked these over, even with the holder, is silly. And once it's had a couple of minutes to dry, we're just going to come in and use a heat gun just to soften it that little bit more. I find it kind of helps it shrink to the part a bit. Maybe shrink isn't the great word, but it kind of clings. And then we're just going to use a cotton bud to kind of push it home and get out any residual moisture from underneath, be it water or decal solution, and then it'll just conform a lot nicer. One turned out a lot better than the other, as you can see. I think that was mainly down to my surface finish. That was the cat in the background. I think that's mainly down to my surface finish. But I'm still happy with them. Okay, next up was a little bit of paint on our photo etch. The exhaust bands are like a metal band, but they've got like a rubber underneath just to stop the exhaust being scratched. So we're going to paint that up, and then once that's dry, we're just going to chop them off the sprue and then come in with a sander just to sand the paint off the high spots, which in this case is the metal band that goes around the exhaust, and that'll leave the lower areas painted black for our kind of rubber underneath. So next up, we're doing the PE banding, which kind of is one of the main parts of the exhaust. It holds it together on a real exhaust. It's where the rivets go through to keep the kind of center part onto the end caps. The PE was a little thick and it didn't bend that nice. This first one was, I probably should have done more of a dry run. But the glue didn't stick very well. It was hard to bend. It wasn't as easy as it looks. So I was just making sure to remove some of that carbon fiber decal and the paint underneath, just so the glue was adhering to actual plastic rather than on a decal, because that can cause issues. It can pop off. You can rip the decal up, and that's not really what we want. So I was removing some of that decal where you wouldn't really see it under the banding, and then we popped one side on, and then a bit of glue on the other side. We pushed the decal around, and then we held it with tweezers in place, and I sat there for about 5 minutes just to try and make sure that the glue actually held. Learning from the mistakes of the first band, we opted to anneal the others. So we're just going to get them glowing, basically, with the lighter, any kind of flame, and then just leave them cool at their own pace, and that will take some of the hardness out, and it'll make them conform a lot easier. Only problem is they do then need sanding, because you will have kind of soot on them, which needs to come off. In this case, I was quite happy with that soot because it stayed in the recesses and it stopped me needing to panel line them. So you could actually see the detail in the rivets without any kind of extra processing. So that wasn't too bad. As you can see, I've sanded away there, and you can just about see that black banding underneath. That black banding is a subtle detail and something you'll spot in your reference photos. And speaking of reference, for this build, I've been using some photographs taken by a friend of mine. He's recently started a website to showcase his photography. His work is really, really good. I've been looking through his Ducati 916 set for reference and inspiration for this build. He covers bikes, cars, car shows, car meets, bike races. He covers a lot of automotive-themed subjects. I'll leave a link down in the description to his website. His website's got a contact form, so you can contact him if you want to order any prints, or if you want to discuss maybe getting photos taken of your own vehicle. So yeah, just take a look if you need some build inspiration, you want some prints, you want some photos taken, or you just appreciate some great automotive photography. He's a really nice guy as well. His name is Mike. I've known him for a little bit. I've seen him, used to work at the bike shop I used to go to. And it's not a sponsor at all. I just think he deserves the traffic. So yeah, please guys, go take a look. And with that, we are back to the build. Now, for a little bit of photo etch. So onto the main exhaust strap, we made sure to remove the plating that was left on that part that's protruding up. Popped a bit of glue on and just pushed one side on. And then once that was stuck, we could hold that in place with tweezers, push the banding around. This was a bit thinner, so I wasn't too worried about it conforming, so I didn't opt to a needleless. Thinking back, I should have really, and it might have helped with that soot kind of stain in the recesses, and I wouldn't have to paint it, and the paint wouldn't chip off, because I did have to come in, which I haven't really recorded. I did come in afterwards and just touch up that black banding with a bit of Vallejo, just Vallejo black, just to because some of the paint did actually chip off in the sanding process, as you can see around the edges, unfortunately. So just a bit of a test fit, and yeah, I was quite happy with how they were looking. Could probably do with a little bit of a clean up, just a bit of water on a cotton bud just to get any dust off those decals. They're not glued in place; they're not kind of set in stone, and I probably won't glue them until I fit everything on the model, just so they're in place. But the last thing to do was just add the decals. I'm terrible with this. Is it Termignoni? I'm not sure. Termagoni? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it was pronounced. If I actually stopped and read it, I'd probably be able to say it. But yeah, we just followed the same kind of principle. Pop the decal on, and then push out any remaining moisture, a bit of decal solution, a little bit of heat, and then again with the cotton bud just to kind of fully push it down. And that's our exhaust's done. Oftentimes it's one of my favorite parts of the build. These, I don't think, are my best. I'm still happy with how they came out. I could have put a bit more into them, but time constraints and whatnot changed that. But I'm still happy with how they come out. I enjoyed building them, always do. If you guys enjoyed watching as much as I enjoyed building, then please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. But in the meantime, thank you guys for watching, and have a great day. Stay safe.